a talk for empowering youth, and I think we'll kick this off with our simultaneous sip. So join me in the simultaneous sip. Here we go. And as always, I want to just take a collective breath for openness and security. So let's take a breath together, in and out. All right. I'd like to ground the space for community. Everybody here understands that this is like a brave space where we all have our own stories, our own multiple truths that are all true at once. We want to respect everybody's journey. We want this to be discrimination-free, and we want to embrace the spectrum of self-directed learning and parenting. Yeah, I'm glad to have you guys here today. And today we're going to talk about intentionality over the holidays. So I'm gonna read a bit that I wrote, and I want to talk a little bit about my story, and then I'm going to open it up to discussion. And I'm so happy to have Sumay here. It's kind of exciting because then I feel like we are empowering youth in some ways here. All right, so holidays, how to be intentional. For me, when I think about the holidays, I think back to my own youth. I think of presents under a tree, special music, being comfy in pajamas, snuggled up on the couch, hot cocoa, some snacks, looking out the window and wishing for snow. I think of laughing with family. I think of watching Christmas movies, because that was our thing, Christmas. Really, I think of slowing down and enjoying what's here, and also being excited about what's to come. We often celebrate the holidays as a time of warmth, excitement, joy, but realistically, sadness, anxiety, and exhaustion are present for a lot of us for various reasons. As a parent, I hold this truth into the winter season as I continue to meet work deadlines, facilitate my son's learning, keep the house clean, connect with my wife, and try to keep holiday traditions alive while inviting extended family into our space. Additionally, my wife and I come from two different cultures, and we prioritize different holidays with different customs and assign different meaning to each holiday event. Essentially, our goal is to make the holidays our own, but this is much easier said than done. How do we achieve this while still empowering our young ones, respecting our elders and ancestors amidst all the chaos holidays can bring? What do the holidays bring up for you? How do you stay present in the multitude of emotions? And how can you be intentional in meeting your and your family's needs during this time? So that was the write-up that I did for this. And I feel like that puts us in the right spot. And I want to be a little bit more vulnerable and share a little bit more specifically about our situation, our evolving situation. Past Thanksgiving, we didn't have a Thanksgiving. My dad was fed up. He didn't want to cook anymore. Nobody else was helping out. I mean, sure, we would go to his house and we would help him cook a little bit, but he was the one that was doing the turkey. He was the one that was managing everything and all of that mental load. And last Thanksgiving, he was like, nah, I'm done. We're taking a year off. You guys enjoy what you're doing, and we're finding a holiday meal somewhere. And so it was kind of weird. Like I wanted the family connection, but the meal was a lot of preparation. Kids kind of did their own thing while the adults were working in the kitchen. The sit-down meal was a little stuffy at times. Sometimes it was late, sometimes it was rushed, and we all overate. And maybe that last one's important, maybe it's not. But this last Thanksgiving, and I was telling Joe about this, I said, hey, can we do something where we all get together and it doesn't really matter that there's this home cooked, glorious meal in the way that Sumay makes it. And we went to our local convenience store, Wawa, which is a pretty large thing around here in Pennsylvania, and we got a hoagie. And for Joe and maybe Sumay, a hoagie is a sandwich or maybe a submarine, a hero. Are any of these words clicking for you guys?
I've heard of Euros.
Okay. All right. Maybe something like that. A long sandwich, okay? It wasn't even a turkey sandwich. It was whatever we wanted. And some people got mac and cheese. Other people got a soup and, bread. And we kind of just released the traditional cooking standard and we increased the value of spending time together. That's what we did with Thanksgiving. And what we did with Christmas was, my son loves Christmas and I do as well. And I love the music. And there is like this rigid standard in our society, in the Western society, that Christmas music does not happen until after Thanksgiving or December 1st, or don't put your tree up at this time. And my son pushed back on all of it. And I was like, okay, let's have a talk about this. Like, how does my wife feel? How do I feel? And I'm like, I actually really like Christmas music. And so last year we started listening to Christmas music like mid-November. And we were like, that's okay. Like that works for our family, right? And we started decorating the tree right around Thanksgiving, and then this year we decorated it we at least put it up even earlier. So I guess what I'm saying, why I'm sharing all of this, is that I want holidays to be personalized. And a lot of people think tradition, if we're not honoring tradition, that we're not honoring our family. And the truth is that the more that we can honor our own family and personalize it, that we, in this way, that we are honoring the tradition and what has brought us to this point. So I want to hear from you all, and first of all, what emotions the holidays bring up, and how do you make them your own? And have you gone against the grain? Is there anything that you've gotten yelled at from other people in the street that are like, no, my goodness, don't do that? And ways that you've made them your own and empowered your family?
I think for us it's a bit unique because I wasn't even aware that you're like not supposed to play Christmas music before Thanksgiving. So all Thanksgiving we had Christmas music on. So sorry, but I think that's been something. Our family has never been really super tradition focused. But I think that my sister and my mom, that's something that they value a lot more. And so when it comes to the holidays, I think that my focus has just been kind of trying to create that experience and that feeling for them. Since I don't like, for me, if there's Christmas music on, like I don't even notice. But for them, it like they're like, I'm feeling the vibes. So I think that that's something um, that I've really tried to cultivate around the holiday season is trying to kind of get more out of my own head and more into kind of like, well, how can we make this an experience that everyone enjoys and remembers. And so yeah, I think for us, we've kind of been more creating our own traditions through what we feel like is something that our family would enjoy and appreciate. But
Hmm.
So part of that is me. My personality and everything is so non-traditional, but I asked Sumi to share this. When I was eating the dinner that Sumi and Isla put together, it was a traditional Thanksgiving dinner. And it was like the first time that I had that since last year when she did the similar kind of thing. She made the turkey, the stuffing, the right. And I'm Mr. Innovate Everything. That this doesn't matter. But it took me back. It took me back to when I was a kid with my grandparents, and they would do that. They would do the tradition, and I didn't value this. I never made a turkey. I didn't make stuffing. I would make jokes about it. I'd be like, let's have hot pot with turkey in it, honey. My wife's Chinese. A traditional, we'll put turkey in the hot pot. That was like my joke. But then I think so. I totally vibe with that. We would have our Christmas lights up all year.
Yeah.
Because I thought Christmas lights were cool. And so we would just
we would joke. We'd say Christmas is coming.
Yeah, Christmas is coming. That was the joke. Yeah, well, Christmas is coming. Like the day after Christmas, we're like, it's coming. Technically true, right? But there's something about having all the lights up, though, that then it was just like sitting there, and we weren't turning them on all the time because it wasn't special. And Isla's getting older now, and she loves tradition, and so Sumay and I are like, all right, we should probably actually think about presents and do we're trying to do it but I'm just waiting for Sumay, like your dad. When you told the story about your dad, the thing I thought of was one of these days Sumay is going to be like, you know what, I'm done making these turkeys, Dad. Get up off of your butt and help, or else it's not coming. So I kind of want to step it up maybe and try to do that. I don't know. What do you think, Elizabeth? Did your connection drop? Did you hear what was going on, or?
I missed a bit. My power has gone out and has not come back on. So I'm on my phone now.
We were sharing our reflection. I don't know, Dan, do you want to bring her up to speed, or?
Yeah. So basically we're talking about how do we personalize the holidays? How do we not only respect our family and, the youth within it, and ourselves, and how do we personalize the holidays, respecting them, but also kind of respecting kind of where we came from as well. And my question for, Joe and Sumay was like, have you gone against the grain in terms of the holidays? Have you made them your own? Have you been called out by random people saying like, don't do that. That's not okay in society.
Our neighbors have given up.
I would say we're pretty traditional. My husband does not want to put lights on the outside of the house, so we do not. But we usually do your typical tree, a few decorations, presents. We do church, so we always have a Christmas Eve service. And last year, even though it was Sunday was Christmas Day, they still had a Sunday morning service. And so, we will usually still attend that. But yeah, we visit one grandma and then we visit the other grandma. And so I'd say we're pretty traditional, and I'm kind of in a bit of a changing place when it comes to some of that because of the age of my kids. They're growing up and we're shifting gears, and it's a little bit like less exciting for me, the holidays, as they're older. I think they still really want all the presents, so they will still get presents, but it's not as fun as when they're little and they're so thrilled about everything. And right now they all have money to buy themselves things, so what I buy isn't as exciting.
So what I was saying, Elizabeth, earlier was I got not pushback, but I guess my son was saying, hey, why don't we listen to Christmas music earlier, and why don't we put up the tree earlier, because I love the Christmas feel. And we just talked as a family and said, yeah, why not, right? And it's that whole mentality of the why not approach, in the same way that we were like, hey, kind of let's de-school Christmas and let's make it our own, in the same way that Sumay was saying, hey, we're kind of already outside of the box, so let's get more, Christmas focused, or let's get more Thanksgiving focused and try to make it something. And I really like that. So I'm wondering, Elizabeth, has there been any pushback, or like, I don't want to go to church, or hey, can we open up Christmas presents a lot earlier?
Well, we always used to do, we would do one present on Christmas Eve when they were younger that they could do. And we've had to do a little bit, actually. Their dad used to have to work sometimes on Christmas, or would have to work the night. Sometimes he had to work a night shift around the holidays. So sometimes we would have to do a little bit of shifting just to make all that work. But yeah, really, we've been blessed. We've been able to just kind of be pretty traditional with everything. And I don't know, my kids have never asked to put the Christmas tree up early. I don't know what's with that, but they haven't.
Mm. You know,
something we have done in the past was we always used to make gingerbread houses, and we haven't done that the past couple of years. As they get older, we still do cookies, so we always have a gingerbread decorating party.
you know, and one of the things that you missed is I framed this conversation in a way that, you know, the holidays, it's so easy to stereotype the holidays as a time of like warmth and excitement and joy, but realistically other emotions, you know, come in, sometimes crowd in the space, such as sadness, anxiety, exhaustion. And hearing a little bit about how your husband had to work on Christmas, how did that impact like kind of the family feeling?
Yeah, sometimes it made it a little difficult. And I think I remember one morning, trying to think how it worked. Either he had worked the night before and was coming home early in the morning, but I knew he was going to need to sleep, or it was the opposite. He was getting up and was going to go. So the kids got up at like 5 a.m. to open their stockings, so he could see them open their stockings. And then I think either he left or he went to bed, and we all kind of just chilled until he could wake up and eat. There's been a couple different years where we had some version of that scenario. So they were happy to oblige. But yeah, something that I've talked a little bit about that we actually have going on this year was that last year my father-in-law got COVID and went to the hospital December 23rd and ended up passing away on New Year's Day.
Wow.
So this year, yeah, there's a lot of that in there, and we don't know exactly how we're going to do Christmas this year for sure.
That's hard.
Isn't that part of why we have the holidays? To try to connect with family?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I need to. That's what we were just talking with the kids this morning. How we've kind of put off the talk with my mother-in-law about, you know, what exactly are we gonna do. So yeah, because occasionally they will go, and that's what she did for Thanksgiving. Her other son in Atlanta. So you know, we want to respect what she wants to do. She wants to have Christmas here, and just kind of work through that. It's different this year, or if she'd like to be somewhere else and not have to think about it too much. But yeah, you know, I was thinking about that today and thinking about this, you know, to be, because we didn't really, Christmas was all messed up last year for sure. And so, you know, might be time to really kind of sit down and sit with those feelings and think about Grandpa and the legacy he left. And he was a really amazing, kind man.
Wow. Thanks for sharing that, Elizabeth. That's loss is a thing that's definitely, other families experience that around the holidays, and it's in this very way that I'm talking about. It definitely colors the holidays in a different color. Mm-hmm. And one thing that I want to state is that there's so many different experiences around the holidays, and it can be bad, it can be good, and bad. And there's so many pieces to that make up the story of the collective story of what the holidays are. So even hearing about that is kind of good, even just for me, to give me pause, to think about these things, and gratitude, for sure. But really, Elizabeth, thank you for sharing. And yeah, I'm so sorry.
Yeah, it's kind of, you never realize when the last celebration will be with people, you know, and we actually, I can't even remember exactly what we did for Thanksgiving last year, but last year in August, actually, my husband has 3 brothers, and we had kind of an impromptu family reunion that just happened all of a sudden. And we were able to spend, 4 or 5 days together, with his brother and his parents, and it was definitely kind of serendipitous that we had that last time.
It really makes me reflect on how disconnected we are from death as our Western society, and how it's so shocking when it comes for us. There are so many different cultures that death is like a normal part of life. It's a part of daily life, and it's celebrated. And it's, there's so much more communication between the living and those that have passed away on a very spiritual level and a very connected level. And it's something that I know I need. I know I need time to process these things and work through them, and to connect more. And yeah, it's all really helpful to think about. Yeah.
I feel like there's an element of holidays that, because they can be immortal, that they can help children understand things, and us adults too, things that would otherwise be very difficult. My grandfather passed away a couple years ago. I wasn't even able to make the funeral because of COVID, and Sumay is immune compromised. She has asthma that's really bad, so we weren't even able to go. And he's like a father to me. And we would go to I basically was raised a lot by my grandparents. I often say I'm from Iowa. Even though I technically went to school in Illinois, I was always with my grandparents and my mom in Iowa on weekends, summers, holidays. He was the one who would carve the roast beast, right? Quote Dr. Seuss. He himself, Popo. And I don't know if I've really even healed from that yet, because I haven't seen a lot of my family either. A lot of my family on that side, we had some struggles during COVID. I think some of it was because of the pandemic and being isolated. And so a lot of what I knew to be the holidays, which was going to Iowa, being in Winfield, spending time with family, no matter if somebody passed away, is that will happen. Death is part of life, but the holiday was immortal. It would still come. It would still be there as a way of celebrating, almost like the heartbeat of human existence. So I think maybe this is part of empowering youth, is using those moments as a way to help them find meaning from that suffering, and connection to the people in their lives that help create who they are, even if they weren't consciously aware of the impacts that they had on them early in life. I don't really know. To be honest, I haven't thought this deeply about holidays before, Dan. Thank you.
I've definitely been thinking about it for us, because it seems like so much of holidays and so much of what we make of Christmas is for the children, and that's what's been exciting for me over the years. And as they're not really children anymore, I've definitely thought of what else might we do for the holidays? Might we do more volunteering? Do we want to try to make it a less materialistic sort of function where it's, more about presents and whatever? And, as Christians, we have our faith, and it's definitely centered around our faith and our church. But we still have done, out of the traditional sort of, American Christmassy things, and which something that, I grew up in South America, and we definitely celebrated Christmas, but I didn't get a lot of the normal things because we didn't have the normal Christmas trees or like, snow. So it's kind of been reliving my childhood through their childhood, or the childhood I didn't have. So yeah, to think about, do we just want to keep making it about what we have, or do we want to try to focus on an outward purpose for the holidays?
Yeah, wow. What is the purpose of the holidays? That's pretty deep. I mean, from a cultural standpoint, we could easily say something like, we're celebrating and passing along values. But oftentimes the values that are encompassed in like a popular holiday are so disconnected from its origins that sometimes the meaning really happens on a local level, or at the family level.
I do agree with the point that Elizabeth mentioned about kind of materialism, in terms of kind of like, well, I guess with Christmas, how can you really be teaching the values of like, well, what matters is your family, when it's like, oh, here's some more stuff you can have, and like that's what these kids are thinking about on Christmas, is like, yay, I got a new Barbie doll, but that's not what you really want to communicate to them. And so I think like our family has always been very.
Do you want a Barbie doll for Christmas?
No.
Oh.
But I think so. I think for our family especially, we've always been very anti-materialism, and kind of thinking about like what actually makes you happy, what actually has what is the meaning of your life, what are the real values that you want to have for yourself, for your family, for your community. And I don't think that I agree that I don't think those are really emphasized a lot during holidays, because they're very disconnected from where they came from, and also not necessarily. I guess with the whole question of what is the purpose of holidays, I don't think most people have really thought about it. And so I guess for me personally, I think it's kind of been a time for me to slow down and kind of just break out of the normal routine. For me, I'm a very, very structured person. I just fall into a routine even if I'm not trying to. And so because of that, it can kind of just become like a monotonous rut of like, I'm just doing the same thing every day. I'm getting up at this time. And it just kind of blurs together. And I think that holidays and certain special events can break that up and kind of force me to get out of my head. But I think that it's different for everybody depending on what you need. And so I think that that's kind of what you said for in terms of personalizing your own holiday. I think it's also personalized to the individual and what place it kind of has in their life. But yeah, I love all these thoughts, and yes, I did say I wanted -5 presents for Christmas, but that would mean we would need to throw away 5 things that we don't need.
Oh yeah, that makes
I
sense.
have since retracted that because Isla was very disappointed. But yeah,
Sumay has been really ever since we lost everything. Sumay has been helping usher in the family, like really rallying the like taking anti-materialism to the next level, and just realizing how little. Well, part of it was that, frankly, I don't think we spent any time really. Well, so the worst thing in terms of materials was that Isla had a bunch of paintings that she had made. But besides those paintings and maybe some of the stuffies, nothing else really seemed to matter very much. And I credit my wife, like a lot of her. I wrote a project recently about Taoism and some of these Eastern philosophy teachings that we very much kind of took to heart. So there's something to be said for that. But then there's also like, have you ever gotten a gift that was so thoughtful that you could just tell that it was like wow, you really know me. I've gotten gifts like that from mom that it wasn't just a gift. Like, it was something powerful. And trying to learn about that love language, I think that's important. Breaking out, because I'm like, so like, not that. I just don't generally care. But people are like that, and they can mean a lot. These gifts can be powerful. The intentionality question, I'm looking at the title, Intentionality Over the Holidays. I feel like in order to be intentional, you have to have purpose. And maybe that's why I'm glad that we're having this conversation. I'm feeling it right now, is that it's making me think about the purpose of holiday. Because if you don't have the purpose, how can you be intentional, right? So I don't know, like, what is that? Dan, do you want to help us out here? Like, what is it for you, man? What is the purpose?
Well, I think Sume said some of it really well, that it's like slowing down and getting out of, the rut of daily life. And one thing I completely forgot to say is just being around family that you want to be around, right? Slowing down with them. And for me, another thing that's complicated by all of this is, grandparents and in-laws. And Sume said, like, on an individual level, we have our own personal preferences. And on a family level, I'm talking about the nuclear family here for many families, or the household family or the home family. But there's also, in-laws and grandparents that, kind of muddy the waters of what our values are, specifically for the individual and for the family. And that becomes tricky for me, and it has in the past, in terms of specifically what we were talking about, like gift giving and like over gift giving, and my son getting way too many gifts that he didn't need, from my mom and dad. And it didn't match our values, and we had to, like, over a couple of years, it took some assertiveness on our part, and it took some really value explanation on our part as well, to say, hey, let's shoot for experiences, and let's minimize how much we're giving. And it's really interesting. I think there's so many pieces to this that get mixed up in all of this. I think from my parents' side, giving gifts for the holidays is awesome, because they get to see the excitement, and like they get to see the joy and the warmth, and they get to see the surprise of that, and that is part of the holidays for them, and they can easily give that, right? But then what is too much, right? And what is, I think there's value in giving as well, I think someone said. But you get something from giving in a different way that you get something from receiving. And so if it's just, a child being overloaded with a bunch of gifts, it's not a two-way street in the way that it should be, a sort of a communication or a dance. And I think sometimes if we don't talk through those things, some of that gets missed.
Yeah, one comment was Christmas is also about giving. We can be more innovative about what to give. A couple years ago, or maybe this was 3 years ago, I don't remember, but I had just gotten my 3D printer, and I was just 3D printing a bunch of gifts for everyone. And one of the gifts was our front door broke, and one of the metal pieces was had broken, so I 3D printed a piece and fixed the door, and that was like my present to everybody, I guess. But I did also, yeah, mostly to you, and there was also just kind of like a lot of gifts that I made with my 3D printer that were for Isla, and kind of like just kind of simple, silly things. But I think being more intentional than just buying something, especially like now you have kind of like just like store-bought cards and store-bought presents and store-bought everything, and that I don't think that really shows, that doesn't necessarily show thoughtfulness in a lot of cases. In some cases it definitely does, but I think being, especially for kids, if they're just learning to kind of just buy something just for the sake of buying something for somebody, then it's not really teaching the right lesson.
So
I think for us, oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, you go ahead, Elizabeth.
Oh, okay. Well, I was going to say, for us, I mean, Christian Christmas is, in our American tradition, a Christian tradition at its roots. And so when I think about it from our perspective with Christianity, it's about the birth of Christ, which was itself a gift, which is, where some of the gift giving comes from. But the concept of God, coming to earth to be with us has these themes of, unconditional love, of selflessness, of connection, and some of the supernatural and the magical. That's part of what kids love about Christmas, is that magical feeling of, joy and love and peace, and all those things we sing about in church. And sometimes I do think about that, because when we focus so much on the materialistic, I think all of us are blessed enough that we've been able to be in our warm homes with our families, and our way too much good food, and our excess of presents. And especially these days, I feel like I see more and more the people that just aren't, with the broken families and the, uprights and homelessness that's come with COVID, and people who are just missing people, like we are. And I think it's definitely something we need to think about. And it's something that I definitely wish that I had thought about more and been more intentional about when my kids were growing up, about focusing on more of those things.
Yeah. I when I think back on my experiences around the holidays with my grandparents, there were a lot of things that in the moment I didn't necessarily feel like all that excited about, that I wanted to do. And one of those was going to church. And I was singing a lot. So I was I love singing. I was a wedding singer in college. I was actually married in a church with my wife. And my family was quite adept. Most of them were musicians of some kind, violinists, viola, cello. So we would go to the church, and we would also go to the old folks home. We called it the old folks home. I'm not sure if that's, maybe we're not supposed to say that now. I don't know. But that's what we called it. And we would go and we would sing. I would sing, especially. That was my people ask me what I play, and I say I play the larynx, which is a muscle in your throat. We would go and we would sing, and we would sing these songs. We would sing traditional songs. We would sing hymns, like not even just the old school Christian songs that everybody knows, like Silent Night. I mean, we would go into the hymnal, and we were singing hymns that would date back 200, 300, 400 years. But I look back at some of those experiences around the holidays now, and they're some of the most meaningful to me, even though I wouldn't call myself a Christian. I would call myself one who is very aware of the fact that I can't possibly comprehend what God is. So I don't argue with people about what God is, because I feel like what's the point? By definition, none of us can comprehend the word God and what that really means. But I do know that was something that was really powerful for me. And we did that every year, no matter who we may have lost over the previous year, no matter what people's religious beliefs. We were engaging in the community, and we were sharing the gift of music with the 900 or so people in this small town in the southeast corner of Iowa. Usually when it was frigid cold, might be -5 degrees Fahrenheit. And we would still go out there and sing. And I think for kids that can be really powerful. it's almost like a way of teaching the power of community and the power of sacrifice. Like Dan, it's like, we'll talk about unschooling and some of these philosophies about freedom, right? But what about sacrifice? These, like, I don't like to talk about words like sacrifice. I like to talk about words like freedom. But I was sacrificing. I wanted to stay at home, play with my toys, and eat brownies on Thanksgiving and Christmas. But there I was, bundling up, going through the snow to sing in a place of worship that I didn't believe in some of the things were being said against my will. And I'm so glad that my grandparents made me do that. How do I make sense of that, Dan?
It's a lot.
I feel like it's a way for me to connect with my past, for me to connect with my grandparents, for me to connect with family before them that I never met, that were still sitting there by the tree and singing together.
And I think in this moment, and maybe not specifically yours, but for a lot of people, moments like these aren't just one way. There can be multiple emotions at the same time. Like, for example, you can feel grateful for the sacrifice that you were put through, and at the same time grieve the fact that you didn't have a choice in that moment. Right? And I don't know, again, I'm not
just
saying...
to be clear, there's no grieving. I think that there's something about, I'm just, this is all spur of the moment, Joe style here. And it kind of goes against like some of the stuff that we talk about sometimes, which is all about freedom and empowerment. But there's something about that at a young age, like I was learning about sacrificing for my community. My grandparents, they're grandparents. They're part of the greatest generation, man. They didn't unschool. I went to church. You're going to sing. But I did learn something important there. We don't have to unpack it now. I'm just having an epiphany. I learned something important from that. It was a holiday. I don't know. Save me. Somebody else talk. I need to process.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. Right.
All right. I think that's something that we've been talking about more recently, is how struggles that it wasn't something that you wanted. It wasn't something that you would wish upon somebody else, but it's something that is incredibly necessary for growth. And if you look back and how much it's shaped who you are now, you wouldn't ever wish for it to have not been that way. And so, like, just for example, the fire was something that was, of course, a horrible tragedy. It's not something that we would want for anyone else, but it's something that, like, it was just something that was it changed our lives so dramatically that if it never had happened and who I would be at this moment in time, it would just be so different. And while in many ways I wish it didn't happen, and I think in equally many ways I am also glad that it did. And so that is somewhat contradictory to the whole concept of, just freedom, empowerment, do what you want, because some of these struggles are things that isn't something that you wanted. It isn't something that you would have hoped for or done for yourself, but is something that would definitely shape you and provide a lot of personal growth. And so, yeah, I don't know if that's necessarily directly relevant to holidays so much, but
I think it is, though. Like, think of like what happens with holidays. People have to like pack up, plan, prepare, drive across the country in the middle of winter time often, right? To go eat something that usually you wouldn't do, like turkey. Until Sumay made it, like I just thought turkey tasted like, nobody ever eats turkey. There's a reason why. It takes forever to make well, and it usually tastes tough, and and you're eating these things and you're with people that you don't normally, for a lot of folks, you don't normally even spend that much time with family. Like, if a lot of folks may not even enjoy spending all that much time with extended family. I happen to really enjoy spending time with my extended family, but a lot of folks are like, oh, there's like all these jokes about Thanksgiving and that uncle around Thanksgiving, but you do it anyway. It's like a sacrifice, because if it doesn't happen, then guess what? The family stops spending time together, and then it's gone. And it's like, is everybody doing the thing that they want to do? No. Because if everybody's always doing what they want to do, then they're going to do it by themselves. Right? Maybe that is part of holidays. I don't know.
I think it's more complicated than that, though. It's not like a freedom versus sacrifice. I think there's so many more layers to what happens. And I think boundaries are a big part of this. And for me, in terms of, right, I think freedom is important. So let's start there. But freedom not at the cost of other people's freedom. Super important. Okay, so that's like 2. But then also your values in terms of what it means to get together, what it means to be a family during the holidays is really important. And that's in the broader lens of, your extended family. And so when I talk about boundaries, you have to decide together what works for your family in relation to your extended family. How do we make it work for everybody? And I'm sure that there are sacrifices that need to be made. But I feel like oftentimes people are making sacrifices and people pleasing and just putting a smile on their face because that's bringing joy to people that are coming into your house, but not necessarily joy to the people that are in your house. And so like maybe communication is key here. And it's something that it's such a tricky topic to say, hey, we do want you over, but also here are a few stipulations. And I don't want to sound like a jerk, but this is what our family values. But we still love the holidays with you guys. It's just that a couple of these things have come up. And for a lot of people, hearing that negativity is instantly like a mood killer. Like, holidays are over. We're not going there again, guys. Pack it up. We're heading home. And the truth is, and this is something that I learned recently, is that communicating your values and your boundaries is proof that you want those people in your lives.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I'm with you. Well, there's differences. Like, Sumay's so good at getting me to do things I don't want to do. Like, I've been putting away dishes and starting the dishwasher every night, and I've just completely given up eating out because she makes food every day, and it's just absolutely insane that I still want to go out there and like buy Popeye's chicken. And so now I've gone, what is it? It's like 12 days now where this is ridiculous. She's making homemade food from scratch every day. She's been doing this ever since the fire. And I just got to stop doing it. It's stupid. It's like, so I'm doing it, but it's not because she told me to do it. It was just relentless positive peer pressure. So now I'm doing that. But now it's like I'm thinking back. Oh, here's one. So my stepmother was like really big on having on making sure that everything looked perfect around the holidays. And this is one of these things that drove me. It just felt so wrong because I would hang up a little Christmas ball on the tree and she would get mad at me because it was too close to another one of the Christmas balls. And all the Christmas balls were really close to the ground. And so we would argue about this. And then there's big blow up, and it happened two Christmases in a row. And all I'll say is that like we needed new Christmas trees each year. And it wasn't because they were real trees. They were fake trees. They were supposed to last year after year. I won't tell you what happened, but we just had to keep buying new Christmas trees. It got so bad. So anyway, that's bad. Okay. But the encouragement of this positive, like, hey, Joe, can you help me with my grandmother would be like, Joe, can you help me with the cranberry dessert? And I would just be like, oh, well, but I'm playing on my toys, and be like, oh yeah, it's okay. How about like in 10 minutes? And it was just like this crank. I'm just cranking this thing out. you know, and while she's putting in all the cranberries to make it. And I'm saying, I didn't want to be sitting there with the cranberry crank. I want to be playing with my toys. But she just had like a way of helping me to do the thing that was good, so that when we sat down at the table, she'd be like, and Joe helped with the cranberry dessert. And I'm like, yeah. Great. You know, there's something about that.
Yeah, we like to talk about contribution. We don't have chores here, and it's our thing. But we want to talk about specifically, what's your contribution? And if my son is in Joe mode and he wants to play with his toys, then the easiest thing to say, and it connects, is, well, what's your contribution for dinner, right? And it's so helpful in framing that for my son, in terms of like anything, help out a little bit. And once he helps out a little bit, and, you know, maybe again, because he loves the holidays, he wants to make it special. So then it's like, okay, well, let's go in Kai mode. Let's see the world from his eyes. How can we make today special? Would that include helping with dinner and making it look really nice? Or how would we put these balls on the tree? Let's take a step back and be curious. How does the spacing look at this point? Does it look good? Yeah.
I wish I could go into Kai mode, see the world from Kai's eyes. That would be so cool.
Well, I think, as always, communication and giving kids autonomy and the ability to participate on an equal level, you know, always goes a long way, always makes a big difference.
I think there's so many things. Oh, go ahead, Elizabeth.
Oh, I was going to just say, going back to the ornament, something that we've done is that every year in the stocking, our kids get an ornament. So at this point, most of the ornaments on the tree are their ornaments. And it's usually something that has something to do with something they like or their personality or whatever. So they just get to hang all their ornaments on the tree. We don't really have any room for other ornaments. And the idea is, if they leave, they take their ornaments. So then I will just be bereft of ornaments, I guess. But
you're setting yourself for an empty nest, and it's gonna be hard to see everything disappearing from the tree.
Yeah.
I was thinking, a lot of the traditional things that we do for the holidays and how we interact with people in a very conventional way can really disconnect us from our values. And, you know, a couple of the things that we talked about, appearances, like that is a killer of joy. That is such a disempowering thing for youth. Yeah, wow. And there's so many other pieces, like the bustle of the holidays, trying to keep up with things.
Can you elaborate on the appearances bit? Because I think I know what you mean. But
so super quick example was what you were talking about with hanging balls right next to each other on the tree. That doesn't work for, you know, your aunt, but that worked for you because it was meaningful and fun and they look great, right? And they're shiny and I'm helping out.
I couldn't reach very high.
Right.
It was uneven. It's like, I'm 7 years old. I'm only like 2.5 feet tall. Right,
so why was the end goal in appearances at the cost of the Christmas tree, right? Oh, all right. We'll give Joe a moment here.
just a Christmas ball. I'm okay. Oh, man, my mom was so great at Christmas. She let me put up my Christmas balls and everything all over the house. The entire house was decorated amazingly well, all the way up until 2.5 feet up off the ground. It was like one of my first memories. I was 4 years old, and she just empowered me to run around that house. She gave me some duct tape, some other kind of tape, and she just said, go to town, Joe. It was beautiful. Everything had something on it. Just a wall. I would find a wall, and I would just grab a little piece of duct tape, and I would just stick a little Christmas ball on the wall because the wall needed a decoration. And that was fine. It was beautiful. That's how you empower youth on Christmas, man. You just let them decorate however they want. run around that house in their little jams or whatever they got.
So what do you, how do parents, how do adults deal with the need for appearances, right?
They need to get over it. If they're
Yeah, we
obsessed
just
with
really did not care. Isla and I, we would just we didn't have a star for our tree, so we just made a paper star, and we just taped it on. It was just sagging down. It looked so terrible. It was just a piece of paper cut into a misshapen star with like some yellow marker on it. But yeah, we just did not.
Even the way that you're like laughing about it now, that sounds more special than any star you could have bought, right? You're like, it was hilarious.
Yeah.
It was at the top. It was sagging. It was terrible. And we loved it. You know what I mean? Like, that's personalization, right?
Yeah, well, I think it's just a kind of something in our culture that has just taken over and is very detrimental, not only for holidays, but just this idea that if I have more stuff, if I get this, then I'll be happy. Because it's not. It's just a rat race. Once you get that, then it's the next thing. And so I think that breaking that conception and breaking that precedent of just this obsession with material things is something that I think would be very helpful. But it's hard to do.
It's also the expectations. Like I've been very grateful, and I'm very lucky to have a wife who, like, she doesn't like sit around concocting all of these expectations for me and what I need to imagine that I need to get for her, and then judging me as a husband based on whether or not I bought her the thing that she was imagining and using it as a litmus test for whether or not I actually love her. Like, a lot of dudes deal with that. They tell me these stories and I'm like, wow, that stinks. I'm sorry you have to deal with that. But it's like not helpful at all, right? And kind of appreciating the way that people express their love, the way that they try to give. Like, I would sing all the time. I wasn't big on buying gifts, but I would sing with the kids and I would sing with the neighbors. And last year we went around, oh man, see if you want to find that one. I know we're coming up in an hour. We were going up and down right after our house burned down, in this new apartment, singing Christmas songs up and down every hallway of the entire Founders Row apartment complex. There's like 400 people here. And people were joining us. We would meet people and be like, come on, join us. And it was beautiful.
You didn't get anybody saying, shut up.
No, I think it was, well, we were good singers. Kids had a lot of practice. Oh yeah. Oh, just a little bit of that. Can you play the audio?
Oh, your hippopotamus will do. I don't want it all, no dinky tinker toy. I want a hippopotamus to play with and enjoy.
Oh man.
Yeah.
There's a lot to unpack with this, but I feel like intentionality starts with purpose. And if you haven't thought deeply about values and what you're trying to accomplish in a meaningful way, then I don't see how one can be intentional. It's just going to end up, you're just going to let the culture drive you. And that's a scary thought, I think.
Yeah, I think to wrap it up, intentionality, yeah, and what we started with, if you want to be intentional, you want to be present. And if you want to be present, you want to be curious and open-minded in terms of how your holidays look, how they have looked, how you want them to look. This was an awesome conversation. Thanks all.
Yeah, thank you, Dan. Thanks, Elizabeth.